Cool. Awesome. All right, how are you guys doing today? Hopefully you're as excited as I am about the first official story time with Sonny D. Good morning from wherever you're checking in from, whether you're on the East Coast. If you're on the East Coast, then for all of us on the East Coast, you know, it's a little after 9, quarter after 9. If you're on the West Coast, then it's definitely an early morning. So appreciate you guys from the West Coast. If you're out there from the West Coast, thanks for checking in. So today is exciting for me for a couple of reasons. This is going to be the first of hopefully many story times with Sonny D. And this is something that I've really wanted to do for a long time. I've been thinking about it, I've been talking about it, and now we find ourselves in this corona economy, as I've been referring to it as the corona economy, this new environment. So I think now is like the perfect time to launch an official story time. So this is my storybook corner that I've got here. And story time, as we're kind of going through, it's going to be, I'm thinking I'm going to kind of play around with the format. You guys will have to let me know. But I'm thinking it'll be, an early morning kind of celebration, early morning, early riser celebration. And what I want to do, what my goal is to really be able to just kind of celebrate with you guys different stories. And as I think about some of the stories, I want to share some of the stories from YFYI. So that's going to be definitely a big part of it, sharing some of these stories. And just doing some reads, afterwards, do some Q&A. If you guys have questions, you can throw questions in there. So thanks for everybody that's joining. Thanks for everybody that's up early, waking up, ready to go. Yeah, throw your thumbs up, throw your hearts. What gets you going in the morning? Don't know. It's a little different for everybody. Typically for me, I like a early morning rise. It was kind of interesting this morning going to the grocery store and getting there. I'm thinking, all right, I'm gonna get there as soon as it opens. I'm gonna be the first one in, first one out. And then there's like a line of people around the building, because I guess there's some people that have the same mentality. Let's get in there when no one's in there, get what we need, and then get out. But I like early rising. Hopefully I get up, definitely beat the sun, right? I want to beat the sun every morning, beat the sun up, and then get going and making things happen. So story time. This is the first story time. I'm excited to share. I'm excited to do some live reading with you guys. Show you guys that I actually can read. Rumors may be indicating otherwise, but I can read. I have a high school reading level. And I'm gonna flex my reading skills on everyone this morning. So as I'm going through story time, I'm going to kind of jump around. I'm going to be reading from both YFYI, your first year in the beauty industry. I'm also going to be reading from your first year in salon ownership, which is the newer part of the series. Let me grab this one here. The newer part of the series. So I'll be reading a little bit from both of those throughout. But today I'm going to start with YFY, your first year in the beauty industry. And I think the cool thing right now, especially as we're all kind of at home, we've got these stay-at-home orders in place. We've got, there's a lot of doubt in the air. And I remember just myself, like when I was coming out of beauty school, and there was a lot of doubt. There was a lot of like, what's going to happen next? Am I going to be any good at this, right? Am I gonna make it? Am I gonna make any money? Am I gonna be able to find a job? Am I gonna be able to build a clientele? So a lot of those things kind of hang over our heads when we're kind of first getting started. And that's like a little bit of it's a cloud of doubt. And that happens in the beginning of anything. And I'm sure for a lot of you guys, if you're, experiencing this, as you're experiencing that, if you are, everyone is, as we're experiencing this coronavirus, this pandemic, there's that cloud of doubt. And it's almost like, it's almost like a first year in a sense, because it's your first time for most of you. if you've been a little on the earth a little bit longer, if you're a little bit saltier, maybe you were, you kind of remember the last one, the Great Recession, 2008, 2009. Maybe you don't even recall it. Maybe it was like a blink on the radar. I know for me, I was just getting my salon started and I didn't know what I didn't know. So I think my naivete kind of helped me out because I was willing to take a chance, take a risk, try to start a company and build a company during what they called the Great Recession. So for me, I think that was my only glimpse of it. But for older people that have experienced this before, even if they're, your grandmother who was alive during the last 2 or 3, recessions or close to depressions, it's still probably something new for them, and it's probably something that they're, kind of taking easy, but still very doubtful of like what's going to happen. And that's a lot about like with YFY when, your first year in, when you first get started, you have a lot of those same things going on. You have a lot of doubts. You have a lot of, what ifs going on. And that's kind of where things begin. Just a little bit about YFY, what inspired me to write start this series, which includes, your first year in the beauty industry and your first year in salon ownership. What inspired me to really start the series was I thought back to me as a student in school, and after about 6, 7, 8 years of being a business owner and my job of hiring and firing sometimes, and hiring and interviewing and training and grooming and cultivating talent, I started to see like, what if I could go back and talk to myself as a student when I was in school and share some key takeaways or key like things that I've learned now that I wish I knew then. So that's what kind of got the idea going. And then of course doubt creeps into everything. Every time we always have a plan, right? Doubt creeps in. So doubt crept in, and the doubt crept in, and the doubt was like, wait a minute, you're gonna go back and write a book to go back and give yourself as a student of things that you wish you knew. But how are you gonna write a book? Because A, you barely graduated high school. You were like a 1.7 GPA. That was like your greatest achievement. The only reason you had a 1.7 GPA, and this is me talking to me, right? Talking myself out of a good idea, I thought. The only reason you had a 1.7 GPA was because you wanted to be eligible to play basketball, because you didn't know how to talk to girls, and you thought if you could get on the basketball team, that would give you a shot at getting a girlfriend. All the while not realizing at the time that the girls actually were attracted to the players, the ball players, not the bench warmers, which is what I ended up being. So I had that 1.7 GPA to be able to play basketball, to try to get a girlfriend. Neither plans worked. I sat on the bench, didn't get the girlfriend. But there was that doubt that was creeping in, right? Because I was a poor student. Then I was like, well, how are you going to like publish a book? You don't know any publishers. You don't even know the process. You don't have a clue about how to go about doing any of that. So that was another one. More doubt was creeping in. And after probably another year or two of talking myself into it, I'm going to start this project called YFY. I'm going to try to write a book. Then talking myself out of it. No, you don't know what you're doing. You don't even know where to begin. Then talking myself into it and out of it. It's like seesaw, back and forth. I finally decided, which is my motto. If you guys ever been in trainings, you may have seen my screensaver on my phone. If you want it, I'll send it to you. But it's all black background, and I have all my icons organized up top so I can always see it. So all my little folders are across the top of my phone screen, so it's never blocking my view. But if you want to take a look at it, I'll have to find it here. But if you want to see it, there you go. You can maybe see it on there. But that's my motto. Just fucking do it, right? And that's where I got to. I had to get to this place because I was talking myself out. And finally I decided, you know what? I'm just gonna fucking do it. I'm gonna write a book, right? So I start writing this book, and I was like, man, I started getting stuck again, and eventually what it came down to was it was probably about a year and a half of this push and shove of me talking myself in, talking myself out, before I finally literally locked myself in a room for 48 hours. And on the other end, and with like a bottle of wine, and like took my phone to do not disturb, do not get any calls from anyone. And 48 hours later, I came out with a product. In 48 hours of locking myself in a room, right? And shutting myself off and like, this is my space. In 48 hours, I came out with a product. It wasn't a polished or finished product. It still probably needs some polishing now, but in 48 hours. So I just want you guys to think about that, that story of when you're talking yourself in and out of something, when you're kind of psyching yourself in something or out of something. So for a year and a half, I was just kind of full of shit, right? I was just talking to myself about maybe being able to write a book, maybe, and then, you can't do it. You sucked at everything when it came to English. That was like your worst class. Hey, well, maybe you can do it. There's other people out there that are doing it. And then finally, a year and a half came down to 2 days. 2 days of when I suffocated all the excuses out of myself. So I think, part of that story, I think really is, if you think about like what you could actually do versus what we do, what do we allow ourselves to do? If you ever had a project and you give yourself like 2 months to do it, isn't it interesting how miraculously it takes exactly almost 2 months to do it? Think about when you were in school and your teacher gives you an assignment and they say it's due on June 30th. Who's ever gotten to June 29th and all of a sudden you were like, you're bullshitting the whole time, and all of a sudden June 29th you're like, you know what? I'm going to get this thing done, and you get it done in 1 day. Even though they gave it to you back in April, you had 2 months and then it comes down to 1 day. And that's kind of it's the mystery of us as humans, but it's also not only the mystery of us, it's kind of like the magic of us. And I think about that, and the magic of us being able to really, when our back's against the wall, to make a decision and to get something done. And that kind of mentality exists in everybody. Sometimes, we hate it because it's like, oh man, I'm a procrastinator. I put everything off to the last minute. But sometimes it's in those last few minutes when the pressure's on that we really rise, to the occasion. So I was full of shit, and I finally came to grips with that, and I locked myself in that room, and I had adopted that motto of just fucking do it. And I want you to think about that. And if you want that screensaver, if you want this to be your new screensaver, then you just stand by. I'll send it to you. I'll message it to you. I'll post it after this story time today for everybody. But I have that, so whenever I look at my phone, I'm reminded, to get after it. I'm reminded, because there's always things, right? Projects. And right now we find ourselves with a stupid amount of time. Right now we find ourselves with so much time, we don't know, what to do. And it's in this time that maybe you need to think about that thing you were planning, or you were going to start posting more on social media, or you were going to start writing your book, or you were going to make a video about whatever. Now is the time, because what we have is time. And now is the time. Maybe you can get with yourself. I know a lot of us are, we're shut down until like April 30th, and could be longer, but maybe now is the time to take some of those ideas and some of those things that you were thinking about doing and put it into action. So story time. So I thought it'd be kind of fitting, and I'm a hairdresser first, right? So, I've had other careers in my lifetime. I joined the Marine Corps right after high school. I kind of got talked into that because I wanted a place to live. I wanted travel. I wanted adventure, right? So this slick talking guy, convinces me to join the Marine Corps. And that was a ride in itself. Yeah, he's like, yeah, you want to go to an exotic island? I'm like, yeah, I want to go to an exotic island. But I find out it's Paris Island, and they don't serve mojitos on that island. There's mosquitoes, and it bit my ass to death. So I joined the Marine Corps right out of high school, and that was kind of an adventure. And then I stumbled into hairdressing by complete accident. There was a gap of time in between the Marine Corps and me getting into hairdressing. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And I thought today, since it's the first story time, I kind of take it from the top. and share a little bit of that. And if you have, a copy of the book, then you can follow along. If not, you can kind of listen, and I'm going to be interjecting and kind of diving in and out of this and going in and out, looking at some of these different points and maybe, expanding on them a little bit. I think it's almost like as I look at all of the contents of the book, I look at these like different chapters and I think about these chapters and I'm like, how would these be adapted for today? Like chapter number 1, why is this industry for you? Chapter number 2, resumes, portfolios, and other waste of time, one of my favorite chapters. Chapter number 3, salon interviews. It's not love at first sight, and that's interviews with a capital S. Chapter number 4 is show me the money, where I get into the numbers behind it. And these numbers are applicable to really any industry. You're going to have metrics that you have to be able to know and measure and understand. And I sucked at math, but I was good at money. I was making money since I knew what money meant. That's just something that was kind of innate. I think it was more out of a survival, and I'll share some of that in the story time, maybe today or later. Chapter number 5 is the hustle muscle. What's your DNA? When you think about hustling, and I've got a lot of, I'm applying a lot of pressure to my salon team right now to produce, even though we're at home and we're used to doing everything with our hands, but it's really about developing this hustle muscle. What's your DNA? Chapter number 6 is networking, do or die. That's a great chapter. If you're kind of introverted like me, that's a great chapter. Like I used to be the guy that would go to a networking event with 10 business cards, my business cards, and leave with 10 business cards. Still my business cards. Like I get my little free drink ticket, go get the free drink, stand in the corner and pray to God nobody talk to me because I didn't know what to say and I didn't know how to say it. And my, you see my books behind me, that's like my comfort zone, being with, just getting into some books or something, learning something, and just kind of as a, kind of isolating a little bit. So I think, for me, it's weird. I'm in an industry and I do a lot of speaking and getting a public face, but I feel comfortable, just a one-on-one. So if you're kind of introverted a little bit, but you need to get clients, you need to talk to customers, you need to put yourself out there more, that chapter is going to be huge for you. Chapter number 7 is goals. Set them, but don't forget them. And that chapter is cool. It's one of the exercises I do with my own team. I kind of go through like how to make a goal statement, how to build a goal statement, how to really set goals, and how to achieve those goals. And chapter number 8 is mentors versus coaches, why you need them both. In that chapter, I kind of share some of my favorites, my mentors, my coaches. Some of these people are dead and gone. You'll never meet them. We'll never meet them. And some of them are still alive today, and I still look up to them, and I get influenced by them, and I get coaching advice from them. But coaches and mentors are 2 different people, but you have to have both of them in your life if you're going after it and you want success, right? Chapter number 9, location. Why bouncing around will ruin your career. And everybody's working at a new location now. But that chapter really dives into like being able to land in a place and understand the time it's going to take. Some people start something and after 1 month they're like, oh, I did that, it didn't work. Or they'll start in a new company or a new salon and they'll be like, oh, I tried that, and it didn't work. It's going to take time. And so if you start bouncing around, you'll find a lot of things happen. You lose your mind, you lose your business, you lose everything. So that chapter kind of addresses some of those challenges, pitfalls, things to look for, and things to avoid. And then chapter 10 is the what if you do make it. So it kind of gets into what's next. And that's what kind of prompted me to go into the second book. So we're starting with why, your first year in the beauty industry. And it's how to not just survive, but thrive in the business of beauty. So the preface, I kind of shared a lot of that on how this book came to be. Me accumulating things, me learning things as a professional, wanting to go back and share that with myself and share it with future professionals. That one of the first people that got a copy of this book was a guy named Luke Jacobellis, and he is the business, he was, I think, the chief operating officer. He may now be the chief executive officer. I'm not sure what his title is these days. I think he might have just switched over to that. But he basically is the guy that runs Paul Mitchell, John Paul's, ace from the beginning of days. And he was one of the first guys I sent the book to. And the reason I sent it to him was because he's a business guy, and this is a business book. It's for artists, for creative people, for hairdressers, but it's a business book. So I wanted to send it to him to get his feedback, and he read it in one day, and he emailed me back and was like, I got it, read it in one day. And he's like, I just want to say, he's like, this book is actually, not even just for hairstylists. It could be for people in any industry. So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. He's like, a lot of these concepts, a lot of these ideas, a lot of these actions are applicable to anybody starting out in a career. And so that was a good bit of feedback. And the second guy, the dean of the Paul Mitchell Schools, he got the second copy of the book, a guy named Win Claybaugh. And then he started inviting me to go to some of these big school events, and that's how I started, speaking at a lot of the schools. But knowing that I wanted to get this, my goal is to get this in the hands of everybody just getting started in their career. Also for people that may be kind of at a plateau or maybe stuck and looking for, they're not maybe ready to take the leap and open their own business, but they're looking for maybe some way to jumpstart their current business. Maybe it's flatline. Maybe they feel like they're not growing anymore. So for some people like that, I've had guys that, in the industry 30 years read this and say, number one, they're like, it's the first book I ever read, because a lot of creatives, man, people in general, they're not trying to read books. But, I wrote it for me, something easy to read. Remember, I'm 1.7 GPA, so something easy to read and easy to digest. Not a lot of big words, not a lot of syllables. That's not how I roll. Basic math, you can count from 1 to 10. You can probably get through this book fine when it comes to the numbers part of it. But he said it was like the first book he ever read, and he got a ton of information from it. And this is a guy that's been doing this for 30 years in the industry. So that was good feedback. So I'm constantly collecting feedback. So we start with a little introduction. Like all great stories of beauty, this one begins with a letter from Congress. Really? No, really. 2 years into the project, I received this letter to my surprise. The real surprise, I guess, was that it made me realize that this was the beginning of a special journey. We had arrived, kind of. For me, I guess you could say it was a sign that we were a legit business. Legitimacy was a very big deal for me. Business is business, and I've always been pretty good at generating money. To have a real business and give back to society, not just take away, feels a lot better though. I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's rewind a few years. Buckle up, here we go. And so I have in the book here, I have this letter from Congress. I'll read it to you guys. It's I just got like a straight up like photocopy of it right here. It says Congress of the United States, and you guys can kind of see that. That's on that this first page here. So it's pretty cool. It's got the official seal, right? It's awesome. So it says Congress of the United States, House of Representatives, Washington, D.C. And it's from Gus M. Bilirakis, 9th District of Florida. The date is November 9th, 2011. It's addressed to the Salon 1.0, Sonny D, Artistic Director, Tampa Road, Oldsmar, Florida. It says, Dear friends, I would like to congratulate the Salon 1.0 on receiving the prestigious Upper Tampa Bay Chamber of Commerce Small Business of the Year Award. I am always pleased to see that dedication and hard work are being recognized, as it is truly deserved. Congratulations. Thank you for all the work you've done, and I look forward to hearing about your accomplishments in the future. Warmest regards, Gus M. Bilirakis, Member of Congress. So for me, like getting that letter, right, it was a big deal, and you'll hear a little bit about that and why when I talked about establishing, our business as a legit business. So I go on, and here we go. So how does that happen, right? It seems like just yesterday on a hot summer day in July of 2003, I was lying on the bottom bunk below Andres as an inmate at a maximum security prison in the hills of North Carolina. I guess you could say I have always been a little entrepreneurial, and at an early age understood the concept of supply and demand. From selling Lucy's, as they are called on the block, which are individual cigarettes, in middle school, to other less legal products, I have always been attracted to generating cash. The latter being how I ended up on a 3-year vacation, quotes, which on that hot summer day finally came to an end. How do you go from there to receiving a letter from Congress? And so that little stint that I had there, I got caught trafficking marijuana, lots and lots and lots of marijuana, and ended up getting 3-4 years prison sentence. And so as I think back when I got this letter, and this is now 2011, started the business in 2009, so this is like 2 years into the business, get acknowledged from Congress, where they, I was on the other side, right? I was living on the other side of the law. And so it was it was a surreal moment, being able to establish myself and some legitimacy, going from, being in prison, laying there thinking about that, and then once I got out and, started working and got a legit job, stumbled into the beauty industry, but being able to go there, fast forward, it was, 5 years later, I'm getting that letter from Congress. So it continues. Why me? Why now? As I look back at the path and the journey that I've been on, I feel that now, more than ever, someone needs to speak up for the future of the beauty industry. Is it timing? Is it purpose? Is it a mission? Or is it a vision? Maybe it's all of the above. One thing I know for sure is it's necessary. I could have never seen the future from where I was, but looking back now is the reason why I would like to connect some of the dots for you. Maybe through my experiences, you will see that no matter where you've been, you too can change the entire course of your life if you're open to possibilities. Let's talk about timing. What led me to choose, out of all the destinations in North Carolina, the city of Winston-Salem, to begin a new life, a new journey, a new me, and hopefully a new path? Not having any family or friends anywhere in the state, when I had my pre-release meeting with my counselor, I remember her vaguely saying something about Winston-Salem having about a 40% chance of returning for new parolees, and that being the lowest number in the state. So I said, so there's a 60% chance I won't end up back in here, back in prison. Sounds good to me. I'll take it. That was it. And off to Winston-Salem they shipped me. My next stop was Sweet Potatoes, a restaurant downtown where I managed to get an interview. It was owned by two very special women, Vivian and Stephanie, who, as part of their mission to give back, was hiring convicted felons and giving them another chance at life. When I showed up to the interview with the ambition of becoming a bartender, they politely said, "We don't have that position available." I mean, who was I kidding? They're going to offer a bartending position, the person closest to the register, to someone who was fresh out of prison. So like the rest that started there with a record, I started where they started, in the back of the house as a dishwasher. And I remember, I'm going to jump in here. I remember showing up, when I showed up at Sweet Potatoes, a restaurant, I was like probably about 40 pounds heavier just from lifting weights, pretty swole. I had my hair braided, cornrowed to the back. I'm pretty sure I was wearing like my prison like t-shirt that, you get, like the only clothes I owned at the time, my prison khakis, a pair of Converse from prison. I was wearing like my whole entire getup. And, I show up there, like standing there like, I'm here to apply for a bartending position. And she looked at me kind of like laughing in a sense. I was like, yeah, let me go talk with my business partner, see if we have anything available. And then she comes back and is like, yeah, we have a dishwashing position available. And that's one of the times, I learned, and you have to learn, what humble pie tastes like. Like I had to literally just swallow that humble pie. And when I swallowed that humble pie, it didn't taste good going down. Because here I come in there thinking I'm about to become a bartender. I'm going to make some money. I've been in prison for like almost the last 4 years. and I'm ready to get it on. And she tells me, yeah, you can work here, but the only position we have is dishwasher. I think about that. When you start anything, you have to be able to humble yourself. And I realized, I was gonna have to start from the bottom, and there was no way around it. So that was where I started. So a dishwasher. So I swallowed my pride. Back to the book. I swallowed my pride and went to work. As I stayed focused and put in long hours, I worked my way up to become the head bartender of that restaurant. And it was there that on a beautiful day in the fall, in October of 2004, a group of people came in for lunch. As I was taking their orders, I thought, these guys look really cool. Their style, their hair, they had swag. I figured they were in a band, maybe Maroon 5. I said that to one of the bartenders. I was like, hey, I think these guys are Maroon 5. And she laughed at me. I didn't know, I wasn't up to date on what was going on in culture, music, anything. I didn't know who the hell Maroon 5, heard of them, but I didn't know, right? I'd been gone for years. So she laughed in my face. Turns out they were actually hairstylists who happened to be in town for a hair show a couple of blocks away at the convention center. They began asking me what I was doing over the next couple of days. I basically told them, you're looking at it. I'm going to be bartending. They told me that they could really use me in their show as a model. At this moment in time, I hadn't cut my hair for several years, and I had a huge afro. And I always joke around about that. I don't know if I was trying to channel my inner Bone Thugs and Harmony, but my hair was so long, and I'd keep it braided. Sometimes I would have it out. Back to the story. After spending time in the Marines right out of high school and having shaved my head for years, I guess you could say I was on an anti-haircut kick. I politely turned them down, saying that I know nothing about being a model and had no desire to change my hair. They continued to press me. You'll get to come to awesome parties. I was like, no thanks. You'll get free products. I was like, no thanks. You'll be around beautiful girls. I said, no thanks. We'll also pay you $300 a day. And I was like, oh, okay. What time do I need to be there? Yeah, that was what got me, And I was thinking about it when they were talking about these models, and they also decided to share this with me to sweeten the pot. They were like, we're launching this new brand. It's called Tea Tree, and it's gonna be, there's 40 models, and there's 38 girls and 2 guys. And as I was sharing with you earlier about basketball, the reason I had a 1.7 GPA was so I could try to play basketball, and I really wasn't any good, but I just wanted a shot at getting maybe a girlfriend. So I started thinking about these odds. I'm like, man, 38 girls and there's only 2 guys. That's even better than basketball. So I was pretty excited, and they told me they're going to pay me $300 a day. So I was like, okay, what time do I need to be there? Back to the book. I got the details, and off they went. This particular hair show has taken place for years at this convention center, and this was the last one that was going to take place there, and it was the last one ever. This was my year. Talk about timing. And I'm going to go off cuff for a second. I don't know what you guys may believe in, what you think about how the universe works, but divine intervention, whatever you want to call it, right place, right time. That hair show had been in that same city, in that same convention center, and that actually ended up being the last year. They moved it to, I think it's in Charlotte. So it really was the timing, the place, being in the timing, that really happened for this moment. Back to the book. I showed up the next morning at model call. There was a sea of people. As the stylists came in and started their process of picking models, it happened in seconds. Before you knew it, the room had been cut down to about 30 people. As I watched them do their prep work, the buzz in the air was electric. Watching what they were doing with hair and the fun they were having was intriguing. I was like, this is like another world. My only experience when it came to hair was cutting my own hair, which I started doing when I was 11 years old. My little brother had shaved off my front hairline with a pair of clippers. I was sleeping, and when I woke up, I saw it and I had to fix it. I actually enjoyed doing it. So from that day forward, that's how I got every haircut. I also cut a lot of my friends' hair in the neighborhood because they liked what I did with mine. Fast forward 8 years in the Marine Corps, 8 years later in the Marine Corps, a couple of guys attempted to give each other haircuts at the barracks and screwed up royally. Being the only one at the barracks, I ended up fixing it for them. From that point on, I became the barracks barber. Finally, fast forward a few more years to my prison intake. I was asked if I had any trade skills when I was going in. I told them I could cut hair, and I wound up working in the prison barbershop. So as we start to connect those dots, I think I was in exactly the right place at exactly the right time. And I never would have thought, and all those things that happened, like me fixing my own haircut, that was just, I had to, right? I look like an idiot, right? So I fixed it, and then I start cutting people's hair, and then the Marine Corps, and then prison. So those dots, you can never really connect them as you're looking forward, but when you start looking back, you're like, oh, that's why I did that, or that's why I used to do this. So it's kind of interesting. So back to the story. What these guys were doing was part of the beauty industry. I had never seen this before. I mean, being dragged by my mom to the discount hair salon was definitely not an experience I enjoyed. They, on the other hand, were having fun, being creative, and it was awesome. As I stood on stage that weekend, I had what I call a magic moment. A magic moment in time that permanently affects the course of your life. The ringleader of the show, a guy named Robert Cromines, stood on stage cutting hair and shared his stories with thousands of stylists in the room. He talked about coming to America with only $35 in his pocket, to eventually starting a small salon in San Diego where no one wanted to work for him. He spoke of the time he was doing $25 haircuts to where he was at this point in time, when I was standing on stage, he said he was charging $350 a haircut. And he owned several salons and got to travel the world with his team. As I listened, two things ran through my head. Number one, if he's getting $350 for these haircuts, I am going to be rich. I mean, the haircuts he was doing made no sense to me. Buzzing off random pieces, not cutting certain pieces. I felt bad for these poor girls. For some reason, though, the crowd loved it. Being so green to what was happening, I had no idea what being a platform artist meant, or the fact that he was the best in the industry. The second thing I thought, as I listened to him, was that I needed to learn from him. I wanted to do exactly what he was doing. He instantly became one of my greatest mentors. I saw my future flash in front of my eyes. I took it upon myself to become his personal stalker over the weekend. Every chance I got, whether before, after, or on breaks, I would ask him questions about how he got started. I asked him what steps he took, and on and on and on. Wherever he went, I went. If he went outside to smoke a cigarette, I was right there smoking with him, and I don't even smoke. Finally, at the end of the weekend, a little annoyed, he said, "You seem pretty into this. Why don't you take your happy ass to hair school?" I thought, hair school? I asked him where I could go for that. He began to tell me that Paul Mitchell had recently gotten into the hair school business, but they didn't have any locations in North Carolina. They, at the time, were only located in California, Rhode Island, and the Sunshine State of Florida. Having grown up in Connecticut, I thought I could go back up there, but I was ready for a change. I wondered about the other two locations. Robert asked what I was doing for a living. I told him I was a bartender, and he said, go to Florida. It was full of places to work, and that would be easy for me to find a job there in my line of work. And at that moment, that's what I decided I was going to do. And that was it. And I remember the end of that weekend, I'm going to jump in here. It was just like, it was a whirlwind. Everything happened so fast, and I just was so inspired, and I didn't even really know like what I was watching, what I was seeing, and what I was witnessing. I just knew I had to be a part of it. And that's kind of the feeling, as a company, being with Paul Mitchell now for almost 15 years, that company has always given me that feeling. When we go to shows, when we get together, it's a culture, it's a family, It's led by the original owner and the co-owners, original founder's son. It's that kind of environment, and they welcome, even as a model, me, a little old bartending model that didn't know shit from anything. I didn't know anything. They kind of just brought me into this family. So that was it. Back to the book. The show was over and I went to work. That night while I was working at the bar, all I could think about was that conversation. Over the next couple of days, I contacted the Paul Mitchell School in Orlando and found out they had a class starting in January. I went to Vivian and Stephanie and I broke the news to them that in a few months I would be moving to Florida. They were a little shocked and asked how this suddenly came about. I told them about the hair show experience, meeting Robert, watching him shave girls' heads, wearing a kilt, telling me to move to Florida, and to go to this Paul Mitchell school. They thought it sounded a little crazy, but they supported my decision and would wish me well. I saved up my money and the countdown was on. A couple of months later, I packed all my shit in a U-Haul and headed south, sight unseen. All I had done up to this point was make one phone call and get the address. I remember calling this girl. I'm going to jump back in here. I called down and I was like talking to this girl on the phone, and she answered the phone. She's like, "Hey, it's a great day. Paul Mitchell to school, Orlando." And she was so happy. I almost felt like there was something going. I was like, hello? Like, I kind of was caught off guard by her like enthusiasm. I was kind of like a little suspicious of what was going on. But I decided to do it, and when I went, all I knew was the start date. I hadn't done any other due diligence, didn't have any idea about anything. I just knew it was starting in January, so I was moving to Florida, like sight unseen. Back to the book. So I saved up my money, and the countdown was on. A couple months later, packed my stuff in the U-Haul, and I was headed south, sight unseen. All I had done up to this point was make one phone call to get the address. When I got to Florida, I went by the school. It was closed. But I looked in the window and started to picture myself there. The next day, I came to the school first thing in the morning to take a tour and meet the admissions leader, Jennifer. She told me the class start date and showed me around. For most of the tour, I was in a daze watching the students working on hair. They were all wearing all black. There was great music playing, and it reminded me of the team from the hair show. I thought, this is it. The problem at the time was I hadn't found a place to live yet. I was living in the U-Haul, running low on cash, and had no job. I had about 2 weeks to fix these problems. I immediately hit the bricks and found a restaurant not far from the school in Altamont and got a serving position. Next, I had to figure out my living situation. And I did something pretty scary. Now, keep in mind, guys, I'm going to jump back in here. This is 2005, right? So the internet definitely was a thing, but it was like a new thing. And I'm like kind of nervous at this point because I'm like, I got to find a roommate. I did hit the jackpot because my best friend from like second grade ends up moving to Florida, going to the Full Sail school down there for film and for movie making and the entertainment industry. And his school is actually not far, and his apartment not far from where I was at the Paul Mitchell School, or gonna plan to be at the Paul Mitchell School in Orlando. But having only my U-Haul, my car with all my shit, I'm like, I gotta find a place to live. So now I get into that part. So next I had to figure out my living situation. I did something pretty scary. I went online. I think it was roommates.com or something like that. And I set up an interview. Luckily, the girl that I met, Courtney, who was standing in front of her place with her boyfriend when I walked up, turned out to be awesome. I parked the U-Haul around the corner so she didn't know how desperate I was. I towed my car down to Florida, but decided to leave it parked in a parking lot nearby at the school because the U-Haul actually ran better. She asked how soon I could move in. And in my head, I was like tonight. But I said, the weekend works good, as if it wasn't, too soon. I found out my best friend Justin had moved to town for school, and we hooked up over the next couple of days so we could catch up. He was like, "You're going to beauty school? Is there something else you need to tell me?" I told him with certainty that I had finally found my calling. Still a little confused, he said, "All right, man." He's like, "If that's what you want to do, good luck." I walked into the school for the first day and I was greeted, and then I was brought to the financial aid office. This was perfect because I was in desperate need of financial aid. As I sat there and we began to go over the numbers, I started to cringe. I had not even found out until that moment how much school was. I looked at the financial aid leader like she was speaking a foreign language. She was going through the numbers forwards and backwards, and I'm thinking, no matter how you look at these numbers, they're all too big. Unless we're going to start dividing, I definitely cannot afford this. At that moment, a lady walked in and introduced herself to me and said, "Hi, I'm Tara." Then she looked at me, looked at the financial aid leader, and said, "Andrea, I need to borrow him for a second." She took me by the arm and led me into the hallway. Next thing I knew, I was in a small herd of people heading down the hallway. I remember looking at the other people in the group wearing all black and having this kind of confused, scared, stupid look on our faces. I thought, this must be the rest of the broke people. We were led into a dark room and the lights were off. As we entered, the lights came on. People started screaming and clapping. Poppers were going off. Confetti was flying through the air. I thought, damn, they really love broke people here. This, turns out, was the first day of what is called core, where you begin your journey. And I'm going to jump back in here for a second. I remember as I, was in that financial aid office, like literally like my deodorant walked off the job. Like I was sweating profusely, and they had it was like number, comma, 00. Like it was, I think at the time, $16,000 we're talking. And I had nothing, right? I had a little bit of money saved up, just got a gig at the restaurant. So I was literally like on fumes, and then she hits me with that. So when that lady, Tara, she came in and grabbed me out of that office, I was holding her for like dear life. Like, thank God you just saved me. So we get in the core. It's the first day where you begin your journey. Back to the book. I spent the first week in school without a contract signed, having anything at the time, but I was having the time of my life. I got the tools, I got mannequins, I got books, I got everything. It was great. I thought that maybe this was the try it before you buy it program. It was not. At the end of the week, I went back into financial aid and agreed to pay a huge amount a month, which I definitely could not afford, but I knew I had to make it work. So I signed on the dotted line and the journey began. And I'm going to jump in for a second. When I signed, I remember looking at this piece of paper and I was thinking, I did some quick math. I'm like, the number they want me to pay monthly for this school, this tuition, is more than like all my bills. It's more than like my raggedy car, my little half rent I'm paying with my new roommates.com roommate, like everything. So I'm like thinking, and you have all the times you operate from you have two different minds. You have one that's in your head, which is about your logic. It's like your logic mind. And you have one that's, it's in your heart. I call it the heart mind. And in your head, my logic mind was looking at this piece of paper, and I remember the financial aid leader's like looking at me. She's like, "This is what your monthly commitment would be. How does that sound?" And in my head, everything about me was like, no, no, no. But something in my heart, was like, just do it. And I remember telling myself, like, shut up. Like I was trying to like quiet that down, and she's staring me in the eyes. She's like, this is what the monthly commitment would be. How does that sound? And up here, I'm like, no, 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 no. And then I had this little, down here, just do it. And I'm like, up here, no, just do it. And finally, like the third time she asked me, she's like, how does that sound? And all of a sudden, I just looked her in the face and I'm like, that sounds great. I remember like freaking out. I walked out and I'm like, what did you just do? Like, you just signed up for this payment. And I remember looking at that number and thinking, like, she says the word tuition, and I'm looking at this number in my head. I'm like, bitch, that ain't no tuition. I'm like, that's a Honda Civic, like, loaded with upgrades. Like, you could get a brand new car for this number. I'm like listening to this in my head, and she's like talking to me. But you know what? Sometimes you got to take that. You just got to take that leap of faith. So I listened to my heart mind, and I said, yep, let's roll. Back to the story. It was a struggle from day one. The things they were asking me to do. You have to remember, my hair experience was with short men's hair, just clipper cuts on myself. The first time I attempted a round brush blow dry, the poor girl almost had to go home with the brush stuck in her hair. That was Sarah, by the way. If you're watching, I apologize. It was so painful, like trying to get that brush out. I had to give up. I felt so embarrassed. I was like, oh God, I knew it. I moved here. I'm gonna suck. This is gonna suck. I just wasted my time, my money. So that was like my first experience getting into like women's hair. I really sucked. I thought several times about quitting. I thought I'd made a huge mistake. I had quit my job that I loved, spent all my money moving to Florida, and now I was ready to quit school. Luckily, I had learning leaders around pushing me. They saw something in me that I did not see in myself at the time. I dug in deep and I kept going. Along the journey through school, I had several magic moments. One happened during a guest artist. It was a special event. We had the co-founder and dean of the Paul Mitchell Schools, Win Claybaugh, there doing a presentation. During a break, on my way down the hall, he walked past me and I said, hey, Win, I just wanted to say that I'm really enjoying your presentation. Thanks for being here. He said, no, thank you. Then he grabbed my arm and looked at the scars that I had from my reckless days and said, wow, looks like you have a story. I said, yeah, I guess you could say that. He asked, do you share it? I said, no. He replied, well, you should. People need to hear it. Then he walked off. I wondered about that brief encounter for a while. I would think, who wants to hear my story? I did not realize it at the time, but sharing my story was not about me. It was about the people who it might affect. Another magic moment occurred, and I'm going to jump back in there for a second. You know, when he grabbed my arm, he's like looking at these scars, and he says that to me. I'm thinking to myself, like, I don't want anyone to out me, like find out about my past. Like, nobody knew about prison. Nobody knew about anything. I was just the Sonny character that was there. I reinvented myself and was there. And I had somehow gotten into this school, and I'm not trying to blow my shot. I'm not trying to blow my cover, so to speak. So I remember looking at that and hearing him say that. I'm like, hell no, I ain't saying shit up to anyone. So that was kind of interesting to think about that at this point. Back to the story. Another magic moment occurred in the hallway in almost the exact same spot as before. I was headed back to class and I heard this deep voice say, "Are you Sonny?" I turned around and there stood the owner of the school, Julio. I ran through a checklist in my head of what I had done wrong. Was I behind in payments? Had they done a background check and wanted to kick me out? Nervously, after a big gulp, I said, yeah, that's me. He began to recall a conversation that he had with his friend Kevin. Kevin was in town visiting and had spent a few minutes with us showing us some blow-drying techniques in class the other day. He said, "Kevin speaks highly of you. He thinks you've got potential." "Oh, cool. Tell him I said thanks." "Yeah, he helped me big time the other day. I've been struggling with this blow-dry thing." As I began to walk off, he said, "That's not the reason I stopped you." I swallowed hard again. "Okay. The reason I stopped you is because Kevin is here to run our new school that's being built in Tampa." So this guy, I'm going to jump in here. This guy, Kevin Michaels, great mentor, ended up becoming, a big part of my journey in the beginning. he's there, right? And I think it was probably because, he was a guy. There was there was maybe one or two other guys in my class. So I think I kind of connected with him. I was like, oh, this is a guy and he's doing hair and he's good at it. I was like, so that was kind of like one of those, connection points where I felt like maybe I still had a chance. So that was reassuring to hear that. So back to the story. So Julio says, he's here to run our new school that's being built in Tampa as we speak. And I'm not sure what your plans are once you finish, but just want to let you know, there's a spot over there for you. I was speechless. I said, wow, okay, keep that in mind. He said, okay, we'll keep up. He's like, good work and keep it up. I went back to class. Wow, wait, what is going on here? All the rest of that day, I couldn't even stay focused. I was thinking, I gotta stay focused. How am I gonna make this trip to beauty school pay off? And I'm gonna jump back in, when he said that, I was kind of like, he was impressed from what? Because I literally hadn't done anything. And so now I'm thinking about that conversation all day, and I just was thinking, I gotta make this trip to beauty school pay off. The end of school came, and not only did I take the position at the brand new Tampa school, but I also landed a stylist position at a salon that had just reinvented itself and was looking for fresh new talent. The owner, Michael, was a master at his craft and a great mentor of mine. He showed me what being a professional hairdresser behind the chair looks like. I worked every day in that salon, and every night I worked at the school. Having two seasoned hairdressers, both Kevin and Michael, to learn from was a dream come true. And I'm going to jump back in here for a second. So with Michael, the way I ended up meeting Michael is, he'd been doing hair in Tampa for, 20 years, and celebrity, an international trainer, and he came to our school in Orlando and did a guest artist announcing he was kind of reinventing his salon and invited me to come over for the grand opening. And when I came over for the grand opening, I got to meet him, and I was like, man, I got to work here. And so that's kind of how I met him. So it worked out that when I went to Tampa, I ended up having interviews the same day at the school and at the salon. And I got offers that same day at the school and at the salon. And I wasn't sure what to do, because I was like, I don't know, which one should I try? I went to school to be a hairdresser, not an instructor or a teacher. And I remember my learning leader, Lisa, was like, I talked to her about it. I really respected her opinion. I'm like, hey, Lisa, I don't know what to do. I got, potentially 2 offers. Which one should I take? And she looks at me and she's like, why do you have to decide? She's like, what was your plan? I was like, well, I was thinking, I either work at the salon or I work at the school. She's like, if they're both offering you a position and you can make it work, take them both. It was like so simple for her. She's like, you're just getting started. You need to take every opportunity that comes your way. So for her, it was as a no-brainer. For me, I was kind of like, I don't know what to do. And she says, take them both. And so that's what I ended up doing. So back into the story. So I have these 2 mentors, and having 2 seasoned hairdressers, both Kevin and Michael, to learn from was a dream come true. It was like I had finished my bachelor's degree and was now going for my PhD in hair. I learned not only how to be a great stylist, but also a great educator. Both of them were masters at education and had been educated most of their careers all over the world. I learned about salon ownership, work ethic, and commitment to the craft. The experiences I took away were priceless. So I'm going to pause just for a second. I see my Instagram peeps that are on there. There's a timer on Instagram, so that stream's about to end. I'm going to restart it right away. So hang tight, and then we'll jump back into story time. Share to story. All right. Cool. We're back. We're back live. Welcome back, Instagram people. Facebook's holding strong. All right, so we're back at story time. So the experiences, I'm going to continue on the story. The experiences I took away from those two mentors was priceless. Like every journey, there came a time, another magic moment, when I realized there was a new mission to undertake. As the school grew from students where we only had at the beginning, when I first started there, 6 students to over 150 students, I started to hear the graduate stories about what they were experiencing as they went out into the industry. There was definitely a problem. I believe about every 10 years, the world as we know it experiences these paradigm shifts. A paradigm shift is a fundamental change in the way things are done. With the rise of the Paul Mitchell schools, as well as others, the training and education that the beauty school student was receiving had drastically changed. The problem is that the salons of today had not changed with them. They were still operating under the old beliefs that beauty school could not possibly come close to preparing stylists for the salon. This has created a language barrier, not to mention the fact that the majority of salon owners did not experience the beginning of their journey at one of these new schools. I just don't think that they knew what to do with today's graduates. After thinking about this problem for almost a year and wondering where will all these graduates go, who's going to be able to guide them, I decided to stop waiting for someone to appear and set out to become that someone. So I'm going to jump back in here. So at this point, right, I'm working, I'm in the salon, I'm working like 9 to 5 in the salon. About 4:30 I leave, I go to school, work until close. So I'm working, 15, 16, 17 hours a day, loving it. And the first few months I'm driving back and forth because I lived in Orlando. And then one of my colleagues, her name is Sugar, she's like, probably I looked exhausted or tired or worn down. She's like, hey, we got a room at the house if you want to, start, rent the room and start, not having to drive forever. So Sugar, thank you so much if you're watching, because she saved me. I mean, I was like literally falling asleep, almost dying to get to the salon in the morning. My piece of shit car breaking down and having to call Jerry at the salon and having to, all this stuff. And then I work all day, go to the school, love it, working, night school. We finish at 10, probably don't get out of there until like 11. But it was awesome. It was an awesome time. I was working like a maniac. But our salon was pretty small, and we were hiring as many people. I was hiring people right out of school, the best ones. But being a small salon, like as that school grew, like when I started there, the first 6 students, we had grown crazy. And these students really, we couldn't hire anymore. And so I was, honestly, for the beginning of that thought, I was really trying to push, the salon owner where I was working, push Michael to start another location or, do something and like just kind of build his brand. And that's the direction I wanted to go. I just wanted to be able to hire these people. I saw the potential of building, this company and this brand and giving these opportunities to these future professionals. I was training them, so I knew they were good. And some of them would come to me and be like, yeah, I'm going to go and go back home, or didn't really find a salon here. I'm going to go to, nursing school or whatever. I'm like, we just went to this school. Like, what happened? And so it started to mess with me on like a psychological level, because I knew that some of these people that were leaving and were just quitting or giving up were tremendous talents, and they just needed the right vehicle. And I just felt like those vehicles weren't existing. And so that's where we're at in the story, where I was kind of questioning those things. And then it was, the time came where it was having that hard conversation and me leaving the salon and to go out and attempt to start the Salon 1.0. And that was one of the hardest decisions I ever had to make, because I love the salon I was at. I never, never really wanted to leave, and really probably wouldn't have either. If we had started expanding and opening up other locations, and because I just saw what was happening with those schools. They were opening up, and it was almost like every week a new school was opening up.
every single, week a school's like, Paul Mitchell School this city, Paul Mitchell School that city. I'm like, man, we need to start opening salons and try to keep up with these schools, because these students are going to be coming out ready to go and not have anywhere to go. And so that's where I got to that point, and I was thinking, well, I have a choice to make, and I made that decision. I was going to be leaving, the salon, and around that same time, leaving the school and going all in on this vision of 1.0, this salon where, we focus on hiring future professionals coming out of school and designing a career path that focuses on that new school student, that new school graduate. Because I was one, I graduated from the school, worked in the school. I felt like that qualified me at least to know where they're at in their journey, not to know anything about business, but for what I did know, I felt like I was ready to take that jump. So I decided, back to the story, I decided to stop waiting for someone to appear and set out to become that someone. In October of 2009, I opened my first salon. Actually, it was my third attempt at opening a salon that year. The first two I attempted to partner with people who did not see the vision, and after I had invested time, energy, and my money into remodeling and purchasing tons of products, they had a change of heart. Being a naive new business owner, I had never had anything in writing, and I was forced to just walk away. Not once, but twice. That was my first real-world lesson in business. I wanted to just go work for someone else. After the second time, I remembered thinking that maybe this whole salon owner thing is not for me. But there was still that burning desire to help change the landscape. That, and maybe that I'm a glutton for punishment, pushed me to start again. Having zero money at this point, my car being repossessed, me being evicted from my apartment, I had nothing else to lose. So I decided to pawn a white gold necklace at a We Buy Gold shop, and I got $600, which would be my seed money. I ended up finding a turnkey barber shop on Craigslist that had gone out of business. I set up a meeting, and I walked in with only one thought in my mind: I need to make this happen. At first, the owner was looking for $30,000 cash, and I could have everything. That would be perfect, except for the fact that I was homeless and only had $600. I decided to share my business plan and vision for what I wanted to do with him anyway. I stood there explaining the problem and the details of, how by letting me take over this space, he would not only be helping me, but he would be helping the future of the beauty industry. I was so into my presentation, I did not even notice the smile that was on his face. As I looked up, I stopped in mid-sentence and asked him what he was smiling about. He said, "Wow." He's like, "You're really serious about this." I replied, "Yes, I am." It's like, "This is my career. This is my mission in life." He said, "Okay, well, here's what I can do. If you can come up with a deposit, we can make a deal." I said, "Done." In my head, I had committed. Commit first, figure it out later. I then borrowed and begged from everyone I knew to come up with a deposit. We moved in that week, changed some paint, hung some shelves, and the Salon Project 1.0 had begun. So I'm going to jump in here for a second. When I was talking to this guy, right, this shop, it was literally brand new. Like, they had opened up, and they literally, as soon as they opened, they basically were out of business because it took way too long to build. They were running on fumes. The concept for the area, it was in Oldsmar. It was like, a family neighborhood. It's a suburb. And the concept was kind of this risque, girls with like barely any clothes on barbershop. So it was like doomed from the start. So it was called Two Hotties, right? So I'm like, oh, as soon as I saw the sign, I was like, no way. I ended up finding that on Craigslist. I was looking on Craigslist and I saw, turnkey salon / barbershop for sale. And that was how I found it, because I was literally scrambling with no place to live, no money left, had gotten kicked out of the other spot because we didn't have anything in writing and in place. Found out the person that was letting us come in there to even start a salon was like upside down in her mortgage and almost trying to throw that debt on me. So that's a whole nother story. So when I go meet this guy that has this turnkey shop, he's listening to this story, and I'm just like, I'm giving it all I got, like every bit of my, being I'm putting into this presentation. And, he was sold. He was sold because literally like it was that was like $30,000+ that he was looking for. And, just was like, all right, come up with some deposit and we'll make it happen. And that saved it. That saved the dream. That saved the vision. So you never know. I mean, they say 3 strikes you're out. So maybe if that never happened, if he never took a chance on, a guy with really no track record, no business experience, just a vision. I had a few pieces of paper with like the salon logo, and I talked about Paul Mitchell and the company and really kind of sold him more on Paul Mitchell. And he really, I think what he bought into was me and my passion and ability to try and pull this thing off, and took a shot. And if he hadn't done that, we wouldn't be here. So here we are. The Salon 1.0 was born again. Back to the story. It has been an incredible ride so far. We now have, at the time of this writing, it was 3 locations throughout Tampa, and there is no end in sight. There are over 100 Paul Mitchell schools throughout the country, and we are going to have 1.0 salons by all of them. We're going to change lives. In the short time we have been in existence, we have done over $2 million in revenue, but better than that, we have stylists that are doing $90,000+ a year in revenue in just 2 to 3 years out of school. I think we have found our way. There is still a long way to go, but we have our eyes set on the future, which brings us to this project. Knowing the position that I found myself in coming out of beauty school, I must say I was extremely fortunate. What about the average student that is graduating today, though? Are they going to land in such a predicament? Probably not. But as I think about those graduates, I decided I want to create a tool, a resource to lend a helping hand, kind of like a GPS to help that person along, to help you as you begin your journey. The hardest part of the journey is that first 12 to 18 months. When you find yourself out there in the real world as a new professional, how do you get the momentum going? How do you find the right salon? What are the things that matter most in the beginning? How do you strengthen your mindset when doubt creeps in and you want to quit? Trust me, it will happen. What are the realities of just starting out? What should you expect? These and more are the questions I am aiming to answer with this book. Let me be your personal guide. I commend you for picking up this book and hope you cannot put it down. Here's to you and an amazing journey filled with many magic moments. So that, my friends, is the beginning of the journey. That's the introduction. This is the first story of many stories I'm going to be sharing on StoryTime. When I think about that, beginning that journey, 2009, and when I was writing this, 2011, 12, 13 had come by. So I probably started when I was thinking about this, 14, 15, 16, right? And then, I start putting down those words to paper and going at it. Here we are, 2020. And that last part, I wanted to kind of highlight. And I haven't read this chapter, obviously, probably since I wrote it. I probably proofread it. But that last part that I said, this is, I believe about every 10 years, the world as we know it experiences these paradigm shifts. A paradigm shift is a fundamental change in the way things are done. I think about that every 10 years. So I start the salon, 2009, 10 years later, here we are. I start writing this book, probably 2016 when I had that thought, kind of going through my head, and then doubted myself for a couple of years, so I put it into action. And so 10 years after the salon, we find ourselves in that same position right now. We're in another paradigm shift, experiencing with our corona economy, what we're going through. So I think a lot of it rings true. It stood the test of time. So hopefully you guys enjoyed, this first story time, this first edition. I'm going to be back with another edition. I'm going to dig into another chapter as I go through this. Ultimately, my goal is just to kind of be able to share and kind of go off the cuff. And I'm like editing and updating a lot of this as I'm reading it and sharing it with you real time. So hopefully you got a lot out of it. And I just thank you guys for hanging out. If you have any questions, I'm here. I'm here for you. I'll post that screensaver up as soon as we finish today, as soon as I end the stream. But yeah, if you have any questions, I'm looking at the screens right now that you want to ask. I'll definitely answer. And really, the main thing I wanted to get out of this was just take the time to kind of share some of these stories. I've wanted to do this for like the past couple of years. I'm like, yeah, I want to start a kind of like a little daily, story time where I can share some of the stories, some of the chapters, do some live reading. And I want to get all of these books recorded on audio, so this gives me a good opportunity to kind of go through the books and to be able to share. And hopefully you guys are enjoying it. So I'm going to just check my other screen here before we sign off. All right. Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for hanging out with me in my storybook corner for story time. Looking forward to the next episode. I'll be coming at you guys tomorrow morning. I think I'm going to be on again. I'm going to go for 9 a.m. If you're ready to wake up nice and early Saturday morning for some story time, let me know. And then if you want to follow along in your book, follow along and you'll see when I kind of go off script. But I'll be picking, chapters. If you have any chapters you want me to focus on from either of the books, just let me know. If you want to grab a copy, just head over to yourfirstyourin.com and you can grab a copy. And if you use the promo code right now together, everything on our website is 10% off. So you can take advantage of that. I'll sign it. I'll mail it myself. You'll see a picture of me on Instagram bringing it to the post office. I'll write a little message in there for you. I definitely appreciate that. If you want to grab one or two or both, grab those at yourfirstyourin.com. Make sure you use the promo code together. You get 10% off. So thanks again, guys, for hanging out with Storytime and listening to some of the stories. And I was able to elaborate, share a little bit of my story, how I got to this kind of point right now. I'll be back. See you guys tomorrow morning. Any questions, leave them below in the comments. Any specific chapters you want me to focus on, leave those also in the comments. The screensaver picture of my phone's screensaver that keeps me motivated, I'm going to post that in the comments. So until next time, guys, hope you guys have a great Friday, great rest of your morning. Hope this was able to kind of jumpstart things for you, get you going, get you thinking on the right side as we continue to be buckled down. But we're coming together even though, we're right now apart. So hope you're staying safe out there, staying healthy. Look forward to seeing you guys and sharing some more stories with you on the next story time. So thanks for watching, guys.